about. And the next poem's from Gordon Thompson, which is actually two haikus, called In Memoriam, Nino's Kitchen, 2017 to 2021, a place of food, fun, friendship. Number 1. How strange last things are. Is that really it, we ask? But we know it is. Number 2. Ache for happy times floods heart and mind afterwards. Life is change, changed life. So those are from Gordon Thompson. Right, who would like to read next? Steve, do you want to go? Nope. Is he frozen? Hello, Jack.
There is no Steve.
Just arrived. Sorry, I'm late.
That's right. Anne, would you like to read?
I thought I'd read a lockdown poem before it all. Lockdown legends. Some are learning a language, or to knit, or to crochet. Some are singing on YouTube, or playing violin or guitar. Some have decluttered their homes, tidied cupboards and drawers. Some run book groups online, entertain on Facebook or tweet. All represent national spirit, undefeated whatever they face. More than those who are legends are those who celebrate in lockdown the chance to sleep in, read, to think of what they might do in the garden or in the home, make plans they never perform, and risks they'll never complete. Those who gaze at the trees swaying in the wind outside, taking their lead from the lilies, neither toil nor spin. Right, and a couple about athletics. Here's a field full of sylphs, like deer fleeing before the hunt, nymphs with hair streaming behind them, flyers soar over bars, bodies elegantly draped. Others leap a distance, cycling the air before the javelin travels almost as high as the stadium we're in. Upward and outward. The throwers are poised for an instant in remembered pose. The runners, the leapers, the flyers, the throwers, all beautiful in performance, all hardly human. But now, like a different species, enormous in thigh and girth, a small army of trolls tramps to the field, shaking the sod, stamps in turn to the prescribed circle, and shouting with effort, swelling their sinews, throw heavy shots, which don't go too high or too far, but land with a thud. In the sunshine, the runners run like the wind on a blustery day. The flyers soar like birds, upwards and outwards, away from the ground. And the shopkeepers groan and grunt, achieve mighty deeds, and earn their place in the story. This is another one. Not about this Olympics, but about the last one. There were problems here, certainly, about doping and booing, finance and lying about bad behaviour on a night out. But the Olympics hold magic and a strange, compelling beauty. Human bodies do more and better than we would think possible. Contestants embrace the victors with friendship, not rancour, oblivious of race, creed, colour. They support their countries and are proud of them. They support their sport and their heroes. You can be patriotic and respectful of all humanity. Why only for a fortnight? Who can sell this camaraderie and unity of purpose? Politicians. That's it.
Thank you very much, Anne. Martin, do you want to go next?
Oh, it's not. It's,
Okay, one from the book. But is it art? The team has catalogued every square inch of chaos of the late Francis Bacon's Kensington studio. Cigar butts for posterity. Examine all those drunken leavings. All poses, save hypocrisy, fall in the orbit of our thieving. Discarded sketches, lovers, scraps, we will preserve them solemnly, for we have gods like other chaps, and would your every relic see cross-referenced in space and time. Postmodern art creates a shrine to Bacon, pork preserved in brine. We must know how you took your wine, so this is how we fill the void left when all religion's gone. What Tracy Emin's bed destroyed exalts this meaningless mundane to dwell upon a rarer, higher plane. All modern art is rubbish, we explain. And a new one, which although I've typed it up on the computer, I'm not adept at the technology to do it without reading it from my handwritten version. So forgive me if this goes wrong. The title of this is Help in Time of Trouble. And there's a reference to Psalm 46, verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. When the disaster bell sounds in the land, let us respond with repentance and tears. When God gives a warning, his judgment's at hand. So in every nation cry out, for he hears. The weakest who calls to him, he'll understand. When all seems most hopeless and troubles abound, what use are the experts whose wisdom soon fails? As soon as the storm breaks, they're not to be found. No good in philosophy's circular trails, but the gospel of grace is eternally sound. I'll read another relatively recent one. This is Mining the Archive 2, Memories of Childhood. Though the future's unknown and what's past too obscure, yet from memory's store some bright flashes arise. In their flickering light, nostalgia's cure is effected, though too often all detail lies tantalizing out of our reach. We endure mere fragments. What sticks is a random amalgam, a kaleidoscope of feeling. Tears were rare or short-lived. A door would slam, and all forgotten. Sunshine clears those clouds. What would later become of childish innocence? As a boy with junk-handle ears, blonde hair, slewed teeth, bad skin and lungs, could not destroy the buoyancy of youth. Beneath these burdens, still content, my joy in life's adventure stands at the boy I avoided, though in fact I walked home unscathed, to scare a younger child myself. I tracked as compensation. Oh, what malice lurks within us. As he froze, I relished this unholy vice. It's a power. Such evil grows when nurtured. Here's a real slice of human nature. So exposed, it will destroy false notions of progress. Nursed factious hearts, disposed to arrogance, coldly shun our neighbours, though we also lived in council housing, done with matching doors and windows, connived to boost our status. Yet we won few friends, and only fostered those perceived as us.
Martin, you've gone all cracked.
Sorry.
We missed a lot of that because it went very.
Ah.
Yeah, you kept breaking up, all crackly and breaking up.
I'm
I
sorry.
noticed that.
Do you want to do that again?
I'll try. Though the future's unknown and what's past obscure, yet from memory's store some bright flashes arise. In their flickering light, nostalgia's cure is effected. Though too often all detail lies tantalizingly out of our reach, we endure mere fragments. What sticks is a random amalgam, a kaleidoscope of feeling. Tears were rare or short-lived. A door would slam, and all forgotten. Sunshine clears those clouds. What would later become of childish innocence? As a boy with jug-handle ears, blonde hair, slewed teeth, bad skin and lungs, could not destroy the buoyancy of youth. Beneath these burdens, still content, my joy in life's adventure still intact. At my first school, a gnawing fear, a boy I avoided, though in fact I walked home unscathed, to scare a younger child myself by tractor's compensation. Oh, what malice lurks within us. As he froze, I relished this unholy vice, a sense of power. Such evil grows when nurtured. Here's a real slice of human nature, so exposed it will destroy false notions of progress. Our family, enclosed at home, nursed fatuous illusions. We were middle class, disposed to arrogance. We coldly shun our neighbours, though we also lived in council red brick housing, done with matching doors and windows, connived to boost our status. Yet we won few friends and only fostered those perceived as of our social class. Lonely at home, as Providence chose my birth between two sisters, as some years apart, you may suppose that shaped my character. I know this made me quiet, self-absorbed, a trifle aloof. This would go, but not until much later, daubed on my inner core to grow into the later man. As years creep by, time moves so slowly for a child, so patience bears reluctant fruit, and what was holy grew much faster in arrears. Thank you. Some of that.
We did the poem, but not what you just said.
I hope you got some of it.
We did, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Vivian, do you want to give some poems?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I've got two. First one I've got was written during lockdown when we all couldn't have a haircut. And I called it Bad Hair Day. I'm sure Anne and other ladies will identify with this one. Okay, I've called it Bad Hair Day. I've just had a haircut, watching in the mirror, my locks falling away, to be unceremoniously swept up. A quick whiz with the blow dryer and spray with something out of a bottle to keep my hair in place, apparently. My hair tidier, my head lighter than before. I pray it doesn't rain, spoil what has been done. Next time I shall miss my haircut, with the latest lockdown to blame. I won't see my hair growing, though I know when I look in that mirror, it'll be a bad hair day. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, this is one I wrote for the Croydon Library Poetry Group, and the subject was drink. And this was my take on it. I don't think I've read this out here before. If I have, my apologies. I've called it, Is This a Pub? With a question mark. What are you drinking today, sir? Will it be vodka, G&T, a glass of chilled white wine, or a cocktail? They're on special tonight. The list is up there on the wall. Or a pint of our best bitter. That's lovely, that is. Perhaps even a brandy or a liqueur, if you want to push the boat out. Our cider's very popular, sir. We have several varieties for you to sample. Giving alcohol a miss, are we? No problem. We have many different fruit juices, squash, Coke, or lemonade. Even mineral water, should you so desire. What do you want, sir? Is that all? A cup of coffee? I think you've mistaken us for Costa's next door.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you.
When I went to the
Thank you.
barbers after lockdown, they actually took a before photograph. Jim, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll read two poems. The first one is called Song to a Guiding Star. You are the captain of my vessel. You are the mistress of my soul. I could never sail without your love. I would have no place to go. And when the stormy winds are raging and I'm sinking without hope, you will pluck me from the waters, and that's all I need to know. So when this world has turned to ashes and the darkness seeks my bones, you will always sail above my ship, and I'll know where I must go. You are the captain of my vessel. You are the mistress of my soul. And the second one is more typical. It's called his best ever dream. He dreams he is a woman, extremely attractive, with gorgeous pre-Raphaelite hair. But on seeing no image of himself in a mirror and thinking he might therefore be a vampire, he runs screaming through labyrinthine corridors and out into a black hearse, which then careers through a dark, dark forest where wolves, knowing their cue, sing with eerie and musical voices. Still a woman and growing more and more breathtakingly attractive by the moment, he leaves the hearse, ignores the headless driver and the trembling blood-whipped horses to cross the threshold of a gloomy castle where bat-infested walls whispered away down into one of its deepest and wickedest vaults. Here, tearing aside a coughing lid, he beholds a woman almost, but not quite, as attractive as himself. Her eyes open at once, and finding herself dazzled by his newly acquired feminine beauty, her slender arms, marble-fanged teeth and pointy breasts leap towards him. Filled with a rising surge of passion he cannot begin to explain, he issues an ululating scream and gives himself up in luxurious splendor. Surrender to this is by a very long chalk indeed, his best ever dream.
Thank you, Jim. Jane, do you want to have a go next?
Yes, I've been a bit depressed about the summer weather and all the rain, so I'm going to read a couple of rain poems. And this one's called One Rainy Day. It rained buckets the day my mother died and the dry season ended. The sky wept without let, releasing spasms of pent-up pain, which moaned through the wind and shivered up the spines of ancient immortelle trees. The rain fell silently at first, then gushed in torrents, noisy and demented, outdoing my own inner storm. Suspending blinding tears, I became conscious of the blistered earth, thirstily guzzling. Once dried up streams, now water powerful, gurgled triumphantly seawards, ferrying new life and hope. I heard the jangling of buckets, positioning under bamboo spouts to catch the all too precious gift of pure rainwater. I heard the laughter of children as they stripped off their scant clothing to offer up ecstatic faces and glistening bodies in joyful thanks for each refreshing drop. At the same time, echoed my mother's voice, mingled with young laughter, the wind's muffled sighs, and the sickly fragrance of white coffee blossoms. In that moment, upon the promise of many a rainy day, reposed my anguish, cushioned, cradled, if not dispelled. And this one's called English Rain. Not as much sadness, but it's a little dampening on the spirits. I've gotten used to English rain, but I don't like it. Too silent. I've gotten used to English rain, but I don't like it. Too cold. I've gotten used to English rain, but I don't like it. Where's its laughter? I've gotten used to English rain, but find it hard to comprehend how dull it really is. Enticing as it does, nothing but drab macks, the shroud of weeping brollies, squelching boots and runny noses pressed upon steamed up glass from behind closed doors. My kind of rain, as I remember it, was the warm Jenny in the boxes sort, a teasing impet who thrived on rapping raucous tunes on window panes, poked her tongue out at you, and somersaulting would disappear down drains before you could ever wish her off to Spain, and knowing full well that she would come back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And it will come back again this weekend, won't it?
Yes.
Steve, do you want to read next in case you disappear again?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm now on the balcony in the middle of Liverpool, and it's the only place that seems to be receiving. So if you can hear me, I will continue.
Clearly, very clearly.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So I'll just read a few verses from a long poem that I read for Ventnor Fringe Festival last weekend. And it's coming out on Google Books. And it's about two alter egos, an artist and a poet. And the narrator is the artist, and he is frustrated with his alter ego, the poet, who can never get things done. So that's the basic narrative, and I'll begin. My alter ego master poet, he has become a drummer again. The reason why, it's plain to see for me, at least, if no one else, his drumming can be out of time, but better than his dreadful rhymes. And worse, in deep and needing help, I helped him with a recent project, working on some half-baked verses while he slept in some distress. And when he woke, we argued, yet he seemed contented, more or less. But later, when I'd gone to sleep, he threw out all the work I'd done, deleted all the documents I'd modified, and changed the password. Now his old career's in tatters. Some may say it always was, and I, an artist, sad to see my alter ego so despondent, nonetheless can draw some comfort. Heartaches that he had with verse, but hearing them was even worse. But one thing that he doesn't know, I rescued from amongst a dross the recent project, or at least a part of it, say roughly half. The rest he must have burnt, I think. I saw some ashes in the grate, or thrown away with household waste, detritus of our daily lives, desserts deserted, overrated, sell-by dated, food outdated. What we're now about to hear is what was found and rearranged. I knew Laocoon, a sculpture writhing snakes, and tortured father, guided Tish and others too. And so my poet other half believes he found another link between the ancient and Renaissance. Writings by the poet Ovid, in translation by another, finding beauty in translation, going on to greater work, inspiring Shakespeare, greatest poet in Renaissance English verse. And then an opportunity, a seminar in mid-July on Ovid exiling Constanta, where this exiled poet died. He was invited, asked to give a presentation, write a poem based on musings over Ovid, though these musings were unformed. But nonetheless, it was a plan for my bold poet, hardly knowing what he's doing. Never mind, there is a glass or two of wine. He writes some lines, gets stuck and drinks, then writes some more. That's great, he thinks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Is it nice and sunny in Liverpool? It looks quite bright.
Yeah, because I'm on the balcony and the noise, because it's right in the centre of Liverpool, is quite loud. It's a loud city anyway. There is some blue in the sky, but yeah, it's quite nice.
Thank you.
You're good when you read loud, Steve. Really good.
Speak up, as my mother used to say.
Lorraine, do you want to give us a couple of poems? But you're still on mute.
Okay. I've got very short ones. Rush through them, but anyhow. And the first one is probably a bit, it could be offensive, but it shouldn't be. This is called Just Avert Your Gaze, and it might speak for itself, hopefully. Try as hard as you're able to weep as the Bavarian floods make their sweep. Oh my God, the rubbish and garbage do not look neat. Echoes of those gaunt and withered, freed by the Axis' defeat. As the Bavarian floods made their sweep, some quaint villages were flattened down, but not by the deliberate and renowned. Oh my God, the rubbish and garbage do not look neat. But the terrain had witnessed previous terror, with sufferings archived by more than one scholar. Echoes of those gaunt and withered, freed by the Axis' defeat, sense climate change retaliate, guiding the most plush province to its fate. So that's what I found about Bavaria. And now here's another one. I don't know if anybody liked to watch I Know, but I did. And I found a little cutting in Metro, which others might have found. Anyhow, this is called So What's in Your Cellar? And this is true as well. Some pensioners are pretty astute. They don't always invest in a bank. Some king of hair flick of repute thought it wiser to hide a WW2 a tank. Here, the warriors keep their pets and souvenirs, and old horses are put out to graze. TV battle docks are on tap to enjoy a torrent of tears. But the cellars far too small for armoured machines that could raise. And actually, yes, there was a hair flick who was about 84, and he's got this big tank in his dungeon, and you're not really supposed to do that, apparently, to keep big war things, and he's been fined about 250,000 Deutschmarks or pounds or whatever. And this fellow has got a tank in his cellar where he lives, which I think is really quite funny. Anyhow, continue. I'll read another one later on after the break.
Thank you, Lorraine. Jack, do you want to read?
Mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I write a poem for this care place where I live in sheltered accommodation. The August poem is about, I've been preoccupied with a lot of my friends here. They seem to be unnecessarily bottling things up. And I think it's a good idea sometimes to just open the windows and let ideas float out of you rather than come into you. And I've come up with this. And as always, because I'm predominantly a musician, it's the sound that I'm working on to get the meaning across. And I've called it lento leggero, which means slow and light. the message wasn't in a bottle. The message wasn't in a bottle. It was a gentle floating perfume of outrageous permanence, whose encounter was its beginning because it was its end. Kiss to destroy, it said. The message wasn't in a bottle. Sorry I couldn't receive you. May I make another appointment? If only. The message wasn't in a bottle. All the surprises I will never know are there. How kind of you to pass me by. You said you wouldn't give me a return number. I appreciate your consideration and thank you for not being in a bottle. I wish I were like the waves of the sea. They think not, neither do they turn. As their work is done, it is finished. Finished because it is not in a bottle, nor compromising its movement, though you'd never notice. I wish I could stop noticing. Surely the only way to see, don't you see? You are not in a bottle. I'm not making this up, you know. That's all.
Thank you, Jack. That's good. Thank you. Gina, do you want to read? I think so.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I've been listening, but
Right.
you're on my phone, so I plugged you in. I haven't done the video because you'll just be looking at my ceiling. So
Right.
just bear with me a second. Let me take the plug out. Here we go. Oh, you see me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah. Let's read something. Okay, I'll read this one. This one, I think I was just thinking about things. I was putting my daughter in bed and I was just thinking, and my mind just went into like a morbid place anyway. So this one's called Poem 31. Here lies an honest Joe in a wooden box. If you dig down a few feet. Not wood, cardboard would be cheaper. But my daughter likes to make rockets and boats out of boxes. I didn't want to ruin that. You'd hope by then she'd grown out of it. I'd thought to get cremated instead, but hated the way burnt toast tastes. Perhaps I should become a leg, an arm, in a chest of limbs and fleshy mannequins. They'd start with a foot and work up to a dead head on the table. Staring at a dead head, my shy dead head. Only I won't really be there. I'd ask death where I'd be, but I didn't have the time. So that's that one. Do you want me to do one more? I'm just going to close the window because I can't hear myself thinking. There we go. I'll just do one more. Can you hear me okay? Or
Yes, we hear you fine.
okay. Let's pick another one. I'll do this one. This is about a place I went to visit. Where's it gone? Sorry. At the bottom somewhere. There we go. It's called The Buddhist Handyman. In London, in a temple, in a house, 5 monks live. They bless and they chant, and there's a bell they ring, but only on special occasions. A black Buddha sits flanked by gold and lotus flowers as incense rises to meet the Mona Lisa. She's somewhere between enlightenment and machine guns. Outside, by the reconstructed lake, An aluminium bullet boat floats among the geese. They cross the bridge. They follow and read poems of warriors to help them meditate. Some empty a golden bowl, holy water on the grass. As I read the notice board and the advert that says Buddhist handyman available. Repairs, maintenance, painting, gardening, no job too small. Please call Paul for details. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ted, do you want to give us a couple of poems?
I've been busy packing stuff away, and I think I've packed them in a box which I haven't found yet. I'm just trying to recompose one from a million years ago. So if I could listen in the first half and come back in the second half, if I've turned this thing into a poem. Lovely to see everyone.
When are you moving, Ted?
Oh, God knows. God, that's just a big sore point, but we won't go into that.
Okay.
But it's utterly exhausting. We're trying to get rid of everything. You never know how much rubbish one accumulates over 20 odd years.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
next, please. I shall mute.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read a couple of poems by Alice Oswald.
Okay.
Right. A short story of falling. It is the story of the falling rain to turn into a leaf and fall again. It is the story of a summer shower to steal the light and hide it in a flower, and every flower a tiny tributary that from the ground flows green and momentary, is one of water's wishes, and this tale hangs in a seed head smaller than my thumbnail. If only I, a passer-by, could pass as clear as water through a plume of grass, to find the sunlight hidden at the tip, turning to seed, a kind of lifting raindrip. Then I might know, like water, how to balance the weight of hope against the light of patience. Water, which is so raw, so earthy strong, and lurks in cast iron tanks and leaks along, drawn under gravity towards my tongue, to call and fill the pipe work of this song, which is the story of the falling rain that rises to the light and falls again. And aside. In Berkshire somewhere, 1970, I hid in a laurel bush outside a house, planted in gravel, I think. I stopped running and just pushed open its oilskin flaps and settled down in some kind of waiting room, whose scarred boughs had clearly been leaning and kneeling there for a long time. They were bright black. I remember this museum of twilight was low-ceilinged, and hear-through, as through a bedroom window, one hears the zone of someone's afternoon being shouted and shouted in. But by now I was too evergreen to answer, watching the woodlice at work in hard hats, taking their trolleys up and down through longer and longer interims. A dead leaf fell, rigidly, yellow and slow. So by degrees I became invisible in that spotted sick-room light, and nobody found me there. The hour has not yet ended in which, under a cloth of laurel, I sat quite still. A couple of poems by Alice Oswald. So now it's break time.
Okay, I probably.
Cheers. Oh.
Okay. I've got I've actually got two, but they're from the Croydon Library Poetry Anthology. I wrote these about 3 years ago. Is two okay, or would you prefer just one?
Two will be fine.
Okay. First one I've got is called Beyond the Ice. From beyond the ice, we can view the lakes, valleys, and snow-topped peaks that were once covered by an ice sheet. From beyond the ice, everything was covered in a white sheet with gusting winds, an icy desert, silent on the surface. But underneath all was chaos, the ice groaning, creaking, as it shifted the hidden landscape into different shapes. Beyond the ice, where we are standing, was tundra, with little to see, except mosses and lichens, clinging to life in the extreme cold. Facing north, the full force of the weather in our faces, the last ice age. One can only imagine, for no one was there, on or beyond the ice. Okay, thank you. And my other one is called Cycle of Footsteps. What are streets for? Streets are where we walk, talk, and do our shopping, where us girls can sit and chat about our lives and loves, and coffee shops galore, where retail outlets abound, people swarm like ants, in, out, round corners, through doors and alleyways, to places unseen. Benches in pedestrianised areas provide relief from shop-weary feet, and bus stops carrying people home, laden with bags and packages. And when darkness falls and the shops are silent, the street echoes with the day's hubbub. No one here now, except the odd straggler or the homeless shivering in a doorway. Little stirs here until the early morning, restarting cycle of footsteps for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for hanging on.
It's all right. I think it was worth it because Ted came back.
Right, thank you, Ted. Steve, do you want to read next on your balcony?
Love to. I thought maybe I'd start by just showing you a brief panorama of Liverpool as a kind of visual poem. So let me just twist the camera around. It's gone, maybe. There we are. Hopefully you can see it. Did you get that?
That's the only film ever of Liverpool without showing the Liver building. Well done.
So anyway, I'll just read one poem, and it's a continuation of what I read in the first half. But the poem as a whole is about this idea of debate in poetry. So there are two debates in this long poem, and I'll just read the first. And again, the artist, who is the narrator, is irritated by his other half, the poet, who is a bit of a slacker. So here it goes. I had a dream a while ago, remembered it a verse ago. My whole was split and cleft in two, and I could talk as half to half, converse and argue, even joke. I thought at first I would get bored, but quickly found that I did not. And using I and meaning we both had fun, and funnily did not get bored. So let me show in lines to come this dream of talking with my other one-to-one. I bought a vintage leather jacket, asked for alter ego's thoughts. He said, my God, but it's revolting. Hope you've kept a till receipt. But poet, you will wear this jacket just as much as you wear me. Not so, he said, the fit's appalling. Taste like in your verses lacking. 4/4 time is fine for tunes. Without the riffs, it kills the blues. And vintage jackets way too tight are bad for fading, aging types. The lines are poor, it's all regression. This old cut is nothing new. A boring take on older fashions, fitted to a weaker frame, discarding background tunes, although they tended to be all the same, discarding modern styles in verse or rather what came randomly to have a thought and write it down and change it till it finds a form. But here the form's imposed on verse, whatever thoughts it might enclose, and this will mean a different verse is found, unlike the one before, poetic, less of common speech that wanders where it will and more, is not arcane and not a bore. But poet, I must carry on and persevere in this endeavor, try injecting life in form that may constrict it practiced wrong, but practiced right might come to life, and writing length is easy when it's in a predetermined form. All right, he said, I see the point, and no Cassandra will I be, and though this jacket's worse than bad and must go back from where it came, this verse could do with some improvement till a final judgment's made, although perhaps we're wasting time, both mine and yours, for I will listen to your thoughts and rushed amendments, making much encouragement, though time, of course, is better spent in drinking and in argument. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lorraine, do you want to follow that? You're mute. You're muted.
Right, sorry. I have read it before, but it's become even more relevant to me now after what TfL's going to do with all the traffic and everything else. And this is called Post-Brexit Freedom Pass. And it's going to be much like we're going to have now, I think. Here's your freedom pass, you senile jackass. See, your surname begins with a J. Mondays and Wednesdays are for K's to R's. We free A's to J's every Tuesday. The S's to Z's have all the weekend, but by swapping passes with a good friend. Don't break the rules or we'll wave you goodbye. With our Dignitous discount, away you will fly. They'll just give us freedom passes and you can only go out certain times, certain days. And the cars, all the roads are going to have special TfL traffic signs that you can't go on. So it's going to be pretty difficult because I'd prefer to drive more now and not wait for hours for trains and masks. So no, I'm not going to look up anymore at the moment, so I'd rather listen this evening.
Martin, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll do a couple more.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Cruising at Night. The engine's thrum vibrates through every part. Each cycle of sound distracts me as I doze. Its pattern is engraved on ear and heart. As waking from the fog of dreams, I close tired eyes again before waking once more to endless waves of rattle, squeak and hum. Likewise, this sea of thought would always pour and seethe and bubble, though my lips are dumb. These trackless wastes of ocean bear me home. What there awaits me, what is left behind? Cleaving water, bows raise transient foam. What is the cause and what the certain cure of statelessness or wandering souls endure? That was en route from Bergen to Dover aboard the Salga Ruby, 4th of June 2013. And I'll read one of the supermarket elegies, number 3, Nocturnal. In these our dog watches a steady trickle comes of insomniacs, eccentrics and square eyes who, obeying ads, come out to buy it now. We're the 5th emergency service, a city which never sleeps, importing US culture along with McDonald's, Pepsi and FedEx. All these night birds perform a steeplechase around these aisles where tomorrow's goods are caged in waiting. Now even Patel's open all hours corner shop cannot compete. We know we'll always get it here with wider choice. Who remembers old ways, queuing at counters as you read out Items selected, cut, weighed and bagged, paid in old money, pounds, ounces, pounds, shillings and pence. Instead, pre-packed, bar-coded, impersonal. Some got him to stop their mobile calls. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, Martin. Jane, do you want to read next?
Muted and unmuted, yes. Yes, still on the theme of weather. Tropical storm Erica followed hot on Danny's heels. Quietly, so unobtrusively she came. No wind, just a gentle breeze that stirred through the leafy trees. Shafts of lightning, a few peals of thunder. But it was the rain, 12 hours of downpour. As without let, the mist-laden sky kept up her weeping. From the kitchen doorway, when it finally subsided, we watched as busy rivulets rushed down drains, as many waterfalls sprung out of every crevice of an adjacent wall. We shook our heads the next day on hearing the news bulletin advising workers to stay at home. A public holiday on account of a little rain? We scoffed in our ignorance. Without access to radio, TV, or internet news, how could we have known of villages submerged, of schools and churches destroyed, of crops and livestock obliterated, of bodies and bridges washed away, of landlocked folk who needed helicopters to fly in basic aid? Our belated wisdom, now mocking us, seemed far, far worse than folly, as our sadness and survivor's guilt set in. This one's called Storm Erica, spirit god or imposter. Stealthily, she tiptoes over Dominica, a mocko jumbie on stilts, and for an uncannily long time holds her breath. With naked malice, she finally exhales upon the shriveled, upturned faces of the rain gods who had slumbered through the rainy season. Chiding themselves for their shameful negligence, they shed copious tears of contrition, from which the rivers who had thirsted throughout the arid months now drank and drank till their swollen bellies burst. Slowly at first they sipped, gulped, then guzzled to excess. And goaded to a red-hot lust for vengeance, they rushed and rampaged, cascaded and stampeded, breaking their banks, scorning boundaries, tearing down walls. They ripped fences, uprooted trees, kicked in roads and bridges, and swept them out to sea, dragging along houses and humans alike. Turning car parks into murky swimming pools, they lifted and smashed up 10-ton vehicles, as if they were no more than plastic toys. Finally subsiding after 12 hours of mayhem, Erica, sinister voyeuse, gleefully approves it all. And ruffling the treetops, she leads them in a funereal parting dance. Mission accomplished, she tightens a steely cloak about her, and as silently as she's arrived, slips surreptitiously away. And I've got just one more to do the same bad weather and the consequences. Grand Inquisitor, it's called. Last night, the Grand Inquisitor paid us an unexpected visit, and with waterlogged tip of his fiery sword, fatally marked the brow of random victims, a carpenter, his chisel suspended in midair, an expert bush tea maker and soother of childbirth pains, a baker of moldy breads, a teacher ever railing against superstition, a pair of brothers distilling the aromatic oil of bay leaves, a toddler in his mother's arms, a righteous preacher with entertaining rants, a grandfather in his dotage, a minder for half the village children, 3 deep-sea fishermen, a teetotal rum shopkeeper, 2 drunken woodcutters and builders, and an arrowroot huckster in her prime. Today, in our cramped little cemetery, Above an ocean-kissed ridge, 18 freshly dug graves lie side by side. In the dark, we lie awake for hours, listening to the doleful murmuring of wind, waves, and wandering ghosts, quite unable to tear them apart.
Thank you very much, Jane. It's very good. I'll read a couple of poems from Sean Borrowdale's Bee Journal. So he kept a poetic journal about his bees for a couple of years. So these are both in 2 years. This is both 7th of August. 7th of August, brood frame check. 12, one side part drawn. 1, both sides drawn, tiny proportion stores. 3, both sides stores, no queen cup present. 2, drawn, part stores. 4, drawn, stores, no queen cup present. 5, brood capped and uncapped, white grubs, yes. 6, brood capped and uncapped, white grubs, yes, yes. 7, minute eggs, both sides, yes, thanks. 8, drawn and stores. 9, drawn and stores, some capped both sides. 10, drawn and stores, both sides. 11, one side drawn only, turned. First sign of new queen, mated and laying, alive. And 7th of August, property. A frame of honeycomb is in the kitchen. Just a candle, vigil out of respect. It's like a body I visit, laid on the table's midnight. The smell is first. Under its pinewood resin, the smell of light is in a miracle. I, criminal, touch its tear-easy skin of skeletal reef. Best use of space for minimal effort. No waste for them, just work, and days of nectar flow a nearing end. Flowers are here, springs of them, wells and weightless, drops of briefest sex, a wax shroud turned down at its corners, a dead skin most beautifully scented, drawn out of dark. When touched, observe the way that light swells in the crack and golden eyes. But it is cold. I paid for it with hooks across my flesh. So 2 poems on keeping bees. Now, Gina, would you like to read something?
It's just something I started in the break. So yeah, it's not finished because I've only been doing it for like 5 minutes. But it's basically about this. Crystal, can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah, it's about this crystal. I really like crystals and I meditate with them. And yeah, I'm just working on some poems about some of the crystals in my collection. So yeah, this crystal is called dendritic agate. Yeah. Starlings swarm in murmuration in a twilight sky. The ebb and flow of black letters print onto a lavender canvas, a wash of purple sunset. I feel the future as I watch their movements. Black trees reach out towards the pale moon appearing, their veins shadowy spindles connected to their heart, their trunk, their roots. Roots unseen are thirsty for water. A single drop lands in moonlit water, its sounds ripples outwards. The importance of a single drop echoes in a white room without walls. I look up into white space. Flashes of purple light shine through a translucent ceiling. They pattern beneath, making the white shine opalescent. Yeah, so I'm just going to carry on working on that, I think, and try and make something.
Well, thank you. That's remarkable to have started that in the break.
Yeah, it's I had like just a few ideas from a meditation, and then I just had a couple of words written down, but I've just tried to make it into something. So
Lovely.
Yeah. Thanks.
Have you anything else you want to read?
I don't know. Let's have a look.
Go on.
I don't know if I've done other stuff or not. I can't remember now. Let's have a look. 1 second. Sorry. That one's a bit sad. I don't really like that one. All right, I'll do this one. It's called My Daughter's School Shoes. Okay. A mother anticipates the first day of school and realizes she is much like her daughter's school shoes. I sit and wait, wrapped in a box, the black shiny leather confined to folds of off-white crumpled paper. Only tried on, not yet worn. I worry I'm not fit for purpose. Back then, I was a little too big. So far, practical, but unnecessary. Return to the box. I wait for the first day to prove myself. Velcro revealed, strapped ready for action. I'll tread the asphalt, climb and jump in corridors, slide and skip on wooden hall floors. Then scuffed, my box will be discarded. I'll join the rungs of the useful, practical, and now necessary when my potential is fulfilled. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Jack, do you want to read?
Okay. Peter, what are the chances of returning to Ruskin House?
I hope next month we'll return. It was just precaution on our side because of the COVID sort of upsurge, but as long as it keeps going down, then I would imagine we can get back there next month.
Wonderful, good. That's good news. I do miss not being together with everybody. It works up to a point. But anyway, thank you. What I've got, I'd like to read 2 or 3 of the poems that I read about a fortnight ago when I was, I told you, one struck me so forcibly when I arrived in London as a student in the late 1950s. And I thought it was advertising ale, but it turned out to be advertising wool. I thought I was convinced it must have been Next One advertising Whitbread's ale, but what had happened? Where would we be without Google? I don't know. I just put the first line of this jingle that I'd seen on the underground in the late 50s. The problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night, which I think is already a glorious opening for a poem. And they sent me, I got back the whole thing that it says. I'll read you just the thing. A nationwide advertising campaign in the 1950s invited members of the public to submit their own verse on the subject of wool. The poem had to end with the phrase, "There is no substitute for wool." The competition attracted thousands of entries, and many were later illustrated and displayed above the escalators of the London Underground. Well, that's where I found them all those years ago, one of them. And I'll read that one, and then I'll read a couple of others, because they stay with me. I can take it down from the shelf and be amused by how good. And this is Mr. Public. You know, none of them have a signature. We don't know whether some of them may have even been professional poets. The rhyming is really masterly. The one that had attracted me says, the problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night. For if you want your mind at ease, how can you let poor pussy freeze? The answer reads on your computer, a woolly overcoat will suit her. From sheep to bleep, all know the rule. There is no substitute for wool. Now, here's another one. Anne Boleyn, the Queen, was sacked. She had her bags already packed, and neatly marked in letters large, the bloody tower by royal barge. Her friends admired her savoir-faire until they missed their underwear. For Anne was no one's fool. There is no substitute for wool. Here's another. Arriving for her pas de deux, the ballerina calls to stir. For underneath a froth of white, a pair of stockings came in sight. When challenged to explain her act, she said it's an undoubted fact. These ballet tights are too cool. There is no substitute for wool. When Rip Van Winkle stayed in bed, his friends got anxious. Is he dead? If not, he could withstand the chills which blew around the Catskill Hills. But he outlived his friends and folk, and when a year later he awoke, he smiled his sleeping comfort rule. There is no substitute for wool. Final. Lord Nelson was an admiral bold, who beat the storms, the French, the cold. Because of fleecy wool he clad each jolly pigtail sailor lad. And if one tar so much as coughed, he had this signal run aloft. Remember, men, the Navy's rule, there is no substitute for wool.
Thank you, Jack. They are funny.
They're quite fun. You can get them just by, putting the first line of any of them in the search for Google, and they are fun to have on your shelf.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Anne, do you want to? There is no substitute for Anne. I think that's the.
Where is she? Oh,
but she's muted.
Can't see her.
Go to the wood most times. There have been too many deaths recently, so I've written a poem called Funeral. Do not fall into the hole his passing has left you. It is empty and black, and smells of mortality. It beckons and lures you to enter and join him. But do not fall into the hole his passing has left you. Do not fall into the hole his passing has left you, though it tears you apart, leaves you incomplete. Fill it with tears and memories to cling on to, but do not fall into the hole his passing has left you. Do not fall into the hole his passing has left you. Your time is not yet, though you're scenting mortality. For the rest of your life remains to make memories of those who come after, to fill your hole at your passing. That's a bit gloomy. I'll give you a less gloomy one. Skin. Though it keeps the outside out and the inside in, I hate my skin. I hate my skin. My skin's not sweet and soft as silk, as lovely and smooth and white as milk. Instead, it's brown and far from feathery. It's old and wrinkled and looks quite leathery. Like a plant too long ago potted and never watered, it's rough and spotted. But some there are whose skin is broke, whose insides through the outside poke, turning the skin a forbidding red, and sometime later blue and dead. And though I really hate my skin, it does keep the outside out and the inside in.
Thank you very much.
Wasn't it?
Jim, can you take away some of our gloom now, please?
Not sure, actually. Sorry. The The first poem is an acrostic poem. An acrostic poem is one where the first letter of each line on the left-hand side makes a message as you go down. And it's about 7 pillars of dialectical behavior therapy. It's a way of just talking yourself into a better frame of mind, etc., etc. Right. 7 pillars of dialectical behavior therapy. Fearlessness in dealing with crises. Understanding as a pathway to enlightenment. Companionship with those of noble and not so noble hearts. Knowledge of weakness in the self and others. Optimism in the face of adversity. Forgiveness of those with impure minds. Familiarity with acrostics. Yeah, if you were following all those letters down, you probably got the message. And the second poem is, so I've got to go to somewhere else to get this. Yeah, it's a poem, basically it starts and then it kind of goes backward. The first part is making the statement, the second part sort of goes backwards in the backward order. It's called Recalling a Touching Moment. That night you set my soul on fire. I choked with deep distress. Fallen angels sang in choirs, but you turned my world to ashes when you called me a pariah. If only I had touched your heart, as if free from base desires. Yes, were I free from base desires, I'd have only touched your heart, but I was always a pariah, so my world just turned to ashes. Fallen angels sing in choirs, as I still choke with deep distress. That night you set my soul on fire.
Thank you very much, Jim. That's very good. Ted, you're going to round off the evening with your found poems. And unmute yourself.
I didn't want to share them. I just wanted to read them to me. Right, one for Steve, if he's still there.
I'm here.
It's nothing to do with red wine either. Sadly. It's no, it's not that one. Just testing you to see if you're paying attention out there. Here we go. Braque scaffold. Seen through the sash window frame, the rising scaffold forms crucifixes. The lean of the ladder, an empty triangle repeating the angles of the roofs. Broadways drum, the sound of boots thudding into the inverted triangle of blue, leading through a cubist reality into a Marc Chagall sky. That's it. That's a little one there.
Yeah.
And another little one. You can, oh, here we go. Here. You've all heard this before. You've all heard them all before. Upper Norwood Vista for Brian, Dan. From roofs at Upper Norwood, I see a water fountain in the sky, which is the arch of Wembley as sun rays flicker through the clouds. I can touch the London skyline, play the city silhouettes like keys on a clarinet, pulled back with notes pitched high. Imagine the fire of London and how firework displays now illuminate festivals at night. Trace architectural fantasy back 1,000 years. I know the hum of London transport, taxi cabs and buses as they crawl historic journeys, past monuments, over bridges, passing famous buildings from Fulham to Leighton and beyond. I enjoy the walk through traffic queues, jams at junctions into Trafalgar Square, the odour of expectation in queues for shows and cinema, and the rickshaw carts. Victorian expansion mapped out in railway lines spreading through counties to the coast. The South Suburbans turn to where I stand, chimney high, and I wonder why the planners and developers who built these homes side by side, staggered gracefully up these hills, never put high windows in the sides. There's a little NB here. There are windows in Belvedere Road which face south. There you go. Do I get another little couple? Or have you all gone home? Hello. They've all
We're
gone
here.
home. Yeah. Oh, it's obviously dark in Liverpool. You're trying to hide.
I thought it was an artwork with blue bars running through a blackness.
Yeah.
No,
Better than my face, anyway.
Right. As you all cried for strictly non-PC recycling, I'll do that last. We'll try this. Dragonfly. Armor-plated Chinese warrior, fatherless child of a flyaway mother, never to know your sisters or brothers, child of the mud slime and aerobic gorilla, scaled back, bulge-eyed beige gladiator, surviving years as predator of predators. How did you know when to crawl up the stem to wait your unplating in a new world, open and endless, where you curled your soft flesh, your back cracked? Were you frightened, now homeless? Does thrumming wet grass render you helpless? No longer hunter, now you are hunted, prey of all flying with nowhere to hide, as you sway in the sun, waiting to dry, biding time. Do your thoughts turn to passion as blood throbs through your veins? Is it ecstasy or agony? Are you in pain? Are you hungry? Are you angry? Relieved, free from prison? Where will you go? No one has told you. How do you know? Now how we love you, admire you, your wings now unfurled, a transformation so pure. Is this freedom? Is this pleasure? Are you sure? Prostrated as crucified is this death? Is it dawning, resurrection, renaissance? How endless your patience, so vulnerable in your transparent state, colouring your lace of an unknown mate. You know this will be your first and last date. Oh, slimline, transparent, radiant, virgin lover, now is the moment you've lived to discover. Will you be the parent of a Chinese warrior? Well, Bob, are you still there?
We are.
All right, you keep blacking at me, mister. And I can't see anything at the corner of my eye. And as you were so captivated by the idea of me filling yet another skip, I shall skip to strictly non-PC recycling.
Excellent.
Oh, I better make sure I've got the second page in it. I have. Oh, this lot got lost as well, and it should have been a book months ago. It took all day to load the skip, put useful bits aside for passers-by, the iron neatly down one end for the scrap man to stop him messing up the road. The shelf pretty quickly, followed by the chair, exchanged for another, and I thought it quite unfair. Ours was faded wicker. There's a stained affair. The roof rack went, followed by the books. I knew someone would take them if we let them have a look. A nice bloke asked about the bike. Would it clean up? It had to look just right for his daughter's birthday party the following night. We burrowed stuff along the alleyways, hid glass and paint below. Glass should be in boxes and paint is very toxic, and there are specialised receptacles at the council recycling bank, but it's 50 minutes drive around the roads. You didn't want to know, did you? No. Asbestos, well, we didn't want those many spaceman suits charging £500 a go, so we wrapped it up in plastic bags, isolated the skip man if they also didn't want to know. We filled it level, sheeted up, and left it overnight. The wood went to a neighbour, the chair just disappeared. It exchanged for a sofa, a lawnmower, and a pair of giant donkey ears. They went pretty fast for a sax without a blast, and a dummy of a model without clothes, covered in graffiti. More like Tracy Emin than Princess Nefertiti, and by 9 a.m. it was as empty as it came. What a shame, and I had to swallow hard. 200 quid to hold a bring and take exchange in our front yard. It's your lot. Lovely.
Bravo.
Thank you for being so patient. Next time I shall look in the box and find some even older poems.
Next time will be in 2 weeks.
Oh, lovely. Oh, you're back, Peter. Good. I prefer that.